tiny problem with it. Nice opinion. Just one tiny problem with it. Inspecting your post, it looks like your opinion is different from mine. Let me tell you something. I am the baseline for opinions. Any opinion I hold is objectively correct, and as a result, any other opinions are wrong. Guess what? You happen to hold a wrong one. I hope you know that your opinion is now illegal. I have contacted the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Navy SEALs, Secret Service, and your mom. You'll be sorry you ever shared your opinions. By the time you're reading this, you'll be done for. Nature will punish you. Humanity will punish you. Supernatural beings will punish you. Space will punish you. We decided just to make sure we'll nuke your house from orbit, so there's no chance you can run away. Everyone will know you will die. It's a small price to pay to remove your wrong opinion from this world.
Microphone. Hello. Thank you. Gosh, dang it. Freaking stupid headphone thing. But we're all right. We're again talking about Johnny Somali being a stupid idiot as usual. So we're back to, again, if you're watching the review, consider the like, subscribe if you want, comment your thoughts if you're watching the review, and then we're gonna, more about Johnny because he's kind of stupid.
Johnny Somali has had his addiction exposed and how he is going to suffer in Korean jail in his latest prison letter. We're going to get that today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Now, as you all know, we have been tracking the case of Ramzi Khalid Ismail, aka Johnny Somali, since the beginning 2 years ago. And he is now sitting in a Seoul detention center, the Nambu Detention Center, as his appeal is ongoing. And that will determine what happens to him, whether it's extended even longer, if he's sent to this forced labor prison. That's all going to be determined over the coming months. And the only window we really have into Somali's thoughts and what's going on is these prison letters, which are being leaked and exposed as we go. Now, we've already gone over one of those letters, but we have a latest letter which goes deeper into his thoughts and what's going on with him. So let's break into all of that. So here we go. We have this, and I'm going to be reading this for you because the handwriting is a little bit messy. So Somali starts the letter by thanking him and giving the information for his commissary. Obviously, we're not going to put that information out there so people aren't sending people Johnny funds. But he asked for Game of Thrones for a paperback. He says that would help.
Of all things, Game of Thrones? Really?
Help him to kill.
Why would you not ask for a better book than that? You're asking for a book series that is never going to be completed ever. So why would you ask for that?
Time with a fiction novel, but then he really gets into the meat of it. So he says, I will answer your questions honestly, but to be upfront, since I do not really know your identity or motive, I will have to be careful what I write. I will not lie, but some things I cannot fully express while all still on Korean soil. So let's stop right there. This person is just a random person that's writing him. We don't really know the intentions of this person. Obviously, this person is turning these things over to the public, so they want them to be leaked. Now, this could be a person that is pro-Somali, anti-Somali. We really don't know, but clearly they want this information to get out there. Now, whether or not Johnny knows this, whether or not this was planned, we can't say. But it is fair to say that these are things that Johnny is willing to say regardless. He's just willing to go out there and say no matter what. To continue on there, he says, also, if you could include an unused stamp in your next letter, I can write you back a lot quicker. I was very curious of the social media and traditional media coverage of my case and sentencing. I would really appreciate if you could screenshot or print some of the articles in English or the top Reddit or X threads, right? Twitter X threads. So stop right there. Johnny Somali, you exposed the first thing he's really going for. The thing he really cares about here is his social media appearance. Johnny Somali, if you guys don't know, Ramzi Khalid Ismail is addicted to what people are saying about him. He's constantly watching every video on him, etc. He watched all of my videos, was always there to see and hit a dislike button. So one thing I've said about this is his punishment is being away from the internet, away from social media.
That's his worst punishment for him.
Away from being able to track this. He just has a TV. He doesn't have anything else in there. And that's really just Korean programming. He's not getting Johnny Somali news 24/7 and being able to think he's the center of the world because people are putting bad press out on him. Part of that addiction is cut now. He's not able to get that. This only is fed. His attention is only given through these letters, and he is already hurting, and it has barely been a month behind bars. And you can see he goes in the next page here even deeper into what he wants and exactly what he thinks is important. He says, or even YouTube reactions, even Korean sites translated in English. So he's fiending so hard. He wants anything. He just wants that hit of social media validation.
Even if it's,
he says the Korean opinions would be interesting to read, but I would like to see Western and Korean opinions. I heard it made the New York Times, so I would love to have that too specifically. So somebody told him, somehow it got out there. Maybe this was, circulating at some point. Maybe there's a copy of the New York Times in the prison. Who knows? Something like that. Now, that article was absolutely horrible. We reviewed it. It had some information that wasn't entirely accurate. It wasn't the full picture. It also painted him in a very neutral light, which I think was very weird to do, perhaps because the New York Times is mainly something that is for rather elderly people that aren't aware of the internet, so they don't have as much context here. But he wants that information because he's addicted to thinking he is the most important person in the world. A key factor about these nuisance streamers is they think they are the center of the universe. Because it was on TV for a couple days in all the cells, and we have Korean newspaper clippings here, but it would be curious to see the general consensus of the outcome. All of the guards and inmates know who I am. So he's getting this false importance because they know who I am. So he thinks, oh, he's so important. He's some sort of VIP. He says, living situation. At the moment, I'm staying in a cell with other foreign inmates, but I have been given the option to stay alone if I would like. I think most foreign inmates are Chinese. So he's in there with a bunch of Chinese people. He has the option of going into solitary, essentially. If he wants to go into a solitary cell, which would not be as preferable, trust me, if he wants to go there. He also said treatment of facilities. I've honestly been treated very well at the detention center and have tried to accommodate my needs to make me feel comfortable. I've been given the option to eat a foreigner meal, and that is tailored to my dietary restrictions. And I can choose what to eat for the Korean meal, which is surprisingly good. The medical care is good, and the general living conditions are not all that bad. I am not in a prison. It is different. A word in Korean is gochujang, something like that. So this is an important point. And I do believe, by the way, that maybe they give him an option of another meal, but that meal is not going to be great. This is definite cope on that quality, saying, okay, yeah, it's surprisingly good. No. This is not, gourmet food. This is absolutely the very, very simple meal. But on that point specifically about not being in a prison, he is not being fully informed of what's going down. Previously, he could watch my videos and find out exactly what's going down because we're working with multiple people that are insiders, people that have vast experience in the Korean legal system. We know exactly what's going on. He is unaware of this distinction between a detention center and a prison. And he doesn't know that he's being held here during the pendency of his appeal before he gets sent to the prison where he'd be forced to do labor, right? He doesn't understand this is a separate section. No one's explained this to him. Now, mind you, he just fired, or rather his private lawyer, quit, left, etc. The one that was formerly funded by his roommate, Hank, and former ally, who is now turned a little bit of frenemy, if you might say. That's gone. He's with a public defender. And in Korea, the thing is, lawyers are only going to do that bare minimum that is required unless you push them usually to ask more questions or go further. They're just going to give you what they need to give you and not anymore. So they're not going to go out of their way to explain everything that's going on, the entire system, unless you're actually going there and pressing them with questions and actually asking them the right things, which Johnny Somali has no idea how to do, particularly with the loss of his ally, Hank. So he goes, it's pretty low security and like a summer camp. We just eat, go to recess, work out, watch TV, and read the newspaper. There's no forced labor. We just relax and do nothing all day because he's not yet in that labor prison. That's coming next after the appeal. So if he, for example, gets sentenced to a year or 2 years, the sentence is increased, then he would go on to that labor prison after the end of his appeals.
You told Mom to send her prescription to Amazon Pharmacy. She didn't.
He says foreigners are not allowed to work or be in a cell with Korean nationals. Korean Americans can be put in with foreigners. That's very true. And that is also true that they can't work. And that's actually something that in the prison, there's some jobs that actually people find, hey, they're a way to kill time, a way to do something different. He can't do that because he doesn't speak Korean. Yes, I have social interaction with other inmates every day within my cell block, and during my outside time. I also interact with guards and inmate staff that can speak English. I am like a celebrity inmate here and treated very well by all.
In a bad way, probably. All right. Okay.
All the inmates who shake my hand and always say hello or yell Somali from the cells and cells through the windows. I've had inmates young and old shake my hand and even ask for autographs, which I did 4 or 5 so far. That might pop up online, so I drew some nice art. The staff are always talking to me, sometimes with a translator, and making sure I'm safe and okay. And the staff tell me I should live a nice, kind life and treat people better in the future. Some of the inmates have even said that they're my fans, and I have made good friends already. This is exactly what's wrong with Somali. Somali is treating validation, particularly validation from criminals, as positive reinforcement, as something good. And this is a problem with him. He doesn't really care where this validation comes from, even though it's coming from the most degenerate, the worst of society, the people that are absolutely at the bare bottom, the absolute dregs, which is his Discord, these other people that support him online, the various people that may back him up. Even though it's the absolute worst, he doesn't care. He doesn't care where that.
He will take any support at this point because he's got no one. Absolutely no one left.
That validation is coming from, as long as he is getting validated. He's just getting that attention, and for Somali, attention is his addiction. He also says here, and this is most important, that the Korean legal system, I am a little bit uncomfortable to talk about this topic in detail. This is because he doesn't want exposed how much he doesn't know and exactly how wrong he is. He, I think, has an idea that these things are getting leaked and getting out there, and he doesn't want his ignorance to get out. So he says, as I do not want to jeopardize my freedom further, I will say that the American system, while flawed, is infinitely more fair, and leave it at that. In my personal experience, the Japanese justice system is more fair, but the correction facilities are worse than Korean. So this is actually fairly accurate from all of my comrades in Japan that explained this to me and have talked about this. The Korean penal system is generally more Spartan, less good than the Korean system, but it's not saying much. That's a matter of degree. It's not, it's, once again, this is not paradise. It's not something that's absolutely fun. But knocking the Korean legal system is because he's failed to actually take the time to engage with people who understand it and have conversations to educate himself. He relied on flawed advice. He relied on single source. He relied on people that weren't experts in the Korean criminal system. And that has proven his flaw all along. So let's go over to my judgment. So in judgment, Ramsey is absolutely addicted to social media and his public image. We see that through his prison letters. And the longer he is behind bars and kept away from that is the better. We got to get, like with any addict, they need time away from this to come down, to drop off of this addiction and make themselves right. As much time as he can get in jail is better, because he will not have access to that and his public image will eventually fade away. Also, it confirms he is not receiving accurate or comprehensive information on his legal status. Now, this is very important because it goes to his appeal. He is not going to be making the right decisions, the right strategy, and really the right thinking without knowing everything he knows and needs to know about the Korean legal system. And the public defender he's assigned is only going to give him the bare minimum. So Somali is probably going to be surprised when they tell him, which he probably doesn't know, that he's going to have to stay in prison in this detention center longer than 6 months because of his appeal. He hasn't received that bad news yet, I think, and that's going to be an absolute surprise. Somali does not know what's coming, and I think that's an absolute glorious thing. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next
one. All right, so
this is Arby's quarter-pound pulled pork and chopped bread.
So now we're going to slightly divert a little bit, talk about the K-drama Crown, which, you know, had a little bit controversy. Let me start on this tab. So on here, I'm not sure if it's this one, but let me check. Oh, here it is. Using Chansei instead of Mansei, which that's the one I noticed. Like to Korean sovereignty, and then there's the thing on the whole beads. It wasn't the right amount of beads, and then it was the dress coloring or the garment and stuff. So yeah, I don't think really people care about a slight issue. I don't think the majority of people really care about a slight, you know, incorrection. Again, K-drama had the disclaimer: it's a work of fiction. This, and this. So overall, I don't think most people are gonna. I think most normal people are probably gonna be normal about it instead of getting mad over it, and yeah. But that said, that's kind of a segue into the next video we're gonna react to, which is the lead. The lead of the K-drama Perfect Crown, IU. Why is it mute? Okay.
Have you ever wondered why almost everyone loves IU?
Well, she's the princess for a reason.
This is why. Before she was IU, she was just Lee Ji-yoon. She was born in Seoul in May 1993, and for part of her childhood, she lived with her grandmother and her younger brother in a small home in Gyeonggi while her parents worked through a rough financial stretch. Money was tight. Becoming a singer was not a plan that came from comfort. It came from something she could not talk herself out of. She started auditioning early, and early was not kind. Rejection after rejection. One agency took her money and ghosted her. Another fell through. For a while, it looked like the door would not open at all. Then in 2007, she signed with Lowen Entertainment as a trainee. She was 14. 10 months later, at 15, she debuted.
Hey, South Carolina, we're opening 2 new Bob showrooms in your area.
Stop in for the latest styles at
Okay.
Her first release was an EP called Lost and Found. The lead single, Lost Child, was a dramatic ballad that asked a lot from someone that young. Almost nobody noticed. The EP barely made a sound on the charts. Years later, IU would say she was thankful for how quiet the beginning was, because it kept her hungry.
Think about it. Chicky chick. Boo boo boo.
In 2009, she released her first studio album, Growing Up, led by a retro track called Boo. This one moved a little. Some mainstream attention finally showed up. The following year, IU arrived, building on it. Neither album made her a star. She was on television, she was making music, she was still mostly in the background. By the middle of 2010, she was 17 years old. She had been working in the industry for 3 years. She had released 3 projects. None of them had made her a star. Then the end of 2010 arrived. On the 9th of December 2010, IU released an EP called Real. The lead single was Good Day. The song opened softly, orchestral, warm, a voice that sounded young without ever sounding thin. Then somewhere near the end, she hit 3 high notes back to back, and they sounded bigger than her. People stopped whatever they were doing. By the time the song ended, something had changed. Good Day went to #1 on the Korean digital chart and stayed there for 5 straight weeks. 9 years later, in 2019, Billboard would rank it the #1 K-pop song of the 2010s. But at the time, all anyone knew was that a 17-year-old had just become the sound of Korean winter that year. The title that stuck to her afterward was simple: The Nation's Little Sister. It was meant kindly. It described a sweet, polite, talented girl who everyone wanted to protect. It was the kind of image that could either trap an artist forever or become the soft start of something much bigger. The releases kept coming. In February 2011, Real Plus arrived with Only I Didn't Know. That November, her second studio album, Last Fantasy, landed with You and I as its lead single. The album swept every chart it touched. You and I became one of the biggest songs of her career, eventually selling more than 6 million paid digital downloads in Korea alone. The little sister was now one of the most recognizable voices in the country. Around the same time, she started acting. Dream High in 2011 gave her a first role and a first OST, Someday, which also hit #1. Then came You Are the Best in 2013, giving her a lead role.
Don't bring it
The
up.
country watched her move between music and drama without slowing down in either one. In 2012, she toured. Her first solo
2016 is going to be brutal for the acting part.
tour, Real Fantasy, sold out its Seoul shows in 30 minutes. The same year brought her Japanese debut at Tokyo's Bunkamura Orchard Hall, where she was the youngest Korean singer ever to perform at that venue at the time. Her third studio
Now she's sold out like big stadiums. She's now breaking records for selling out the biggest stadiums in all 5 Korean big stadiums as well.
album, Modern Times, came in 2013, leaning into jazz and older pop sounds. Billboard later ranked it the second greatest K-pop album of the 2010s. 3 years after Good Day, she was already everywhere. But the image around her, sweet and polite, and the nation's little sister, still followed her everywhere. It would take a few more years before she started writing her way out of it. The first time IU wrote a song for herself, she was barely out of her teens. It was a track called Alone in the Room on her EP Real in 2010. She kept writing quietly through Last Fantasy and Modern Times, sharing credits with other songwriters, finding her voice one album at a time. Nobody was paying much attention to the credits yet, and that was about to change. In October 2015, she released Chatshire.
Oh.
It was her 7th EP. She wrote every lyric. She composed or co-composed most of the music. She was listed as the executive producer. For the first time, an IU album was fully IU. The lead single was 23.
Oh, I love this song.
It was a song about not knowing who you were yet, about being seen by everyone while still trying to figure yourself out. It sat between being a girl and being a woman, between performing and being honest. The sound pulled from jazz and pop in ways that felt older than she was. The lyrics felt personal in a way her earlier releases never had.
All right, here comes 2016. Here comes the trauma. I hate to add.
What if you could create account planning
Are you kidding
agents
me?
out of thin
Why?
air to help sellers focus on the right opportunities? What if you could create supply chain agents with almost no effort?
I'm 23 now, 수수께끼. 뭐게 맞춰봐요.
Chatshire peaked at number 4 on Billboard's World Albums chart. Critics called it one of the best K-pop albums of the year. But more than the numbers, it was the first time people started talking about IU as a songwriter, not just a singer. The girl with the voice was now also the girl with the pen.
And then acting.
2 years later, Palette arrived. Released in April 2017, Palette was her 4th studio album, and it was the moment the old image started slipping off for good. She wrote most of the lyrics. She served as executive producer. The title track featured G-Dragon, and the song sounded relaxed, like she had nothing left to prove. Billboard named Palette the best K-pop album of 2017. The New York Times Magazine included the title track on a list of 25 songs showing where music was heading, and IU was the only Asian artist on that list. She won Best Songwriter at the Melon Music Awards. Her pre-release from the same album, Through the Night, quietly became one of the most played songs in Korea that year, and it stayed beloved for years afterward. Then came 2018, My Mister. It was a slow, quiet drama about a middle-aged office
Wait, you forgot Moon Lovers. What are you doing?
worker and a young woman carrying weights nobody could see. IU played the young woman, Jiyeon. There was almost no music cue telling the audience when to feel something. It was all in the silences. She carried it. Critics who had never taken her acting seriously finally did. The show became one of the most respected Korean dramas of its generation, and her performance sat at the center of it. Somewhere between Chatshire, Palette, and My Mister, the little sister image had quietly stepped aside. What was left was an artist who wrote her own songs, produced her own albums, picked her own acting roles, and trusted her instincts in every direction. Nobody had to announce the shift. The work did it for her. By the end of the 2010s, IU had become something rare in the K-pop world. A soloist who kept getting bigger even though she was not following any of the usual rules. No group, no constant variety shows, no constant comebacks. She would disappear for a year or two, then return with an album that moved everything. Each time she came back, her place in the industry had gotten bigger. In November 2019, she released the EP Love Poem. She wrote every track. 2 of them were produced by her. The lead single of the same name felt like a slow, warm hand extended to whoever needed it. The same month, she became the first female solo K-pop act to headline the Olympic Gymnastics Arena in Seoul as part of her Love Poem tour. That was the first of the big firsts. More were coming. Then 2020 arrived with the world going quiet, and she released 8, a collaboration with Suga of BTS. The song gave her a first ever #1 on a US Billboard chart. It was the kind of achievement most K-pop soloists would build entire campaigns around. IU released it, performed it a handful of times, and moved on to the next thing. In January 2021, she released the pre-release single, Celebrity. It held the top of the Korean digital chart for 6 weeks straight. 2 months later, in March 2021, her 5th studio album, Lilac, arrived. She wrote every lyric on it. The title track closed out what she had called her 20s series, a set of songs stretching back to spring of a 20-year-old and 23 and Palette and 8. Lilac was the goodbye to her 20s. She was turning 30, and she was saying farewell to her youth through her songs. The album went
makes sense.
platinum in Korea. Celebrity was named the most popular song of 2021 in the country. She won Best Songwriter again. Then came September 17 and 18, 2022. The Golden Hour, Under the Orange Sun. 2 nights at Seoul Olympic Stadium. IU became the first Korean female solo artist ever to hold a concert at that venue. The footage from those nights is the kind people still rewatch years later. She stood on a stage no female soloist in Korea had ever reached, and she looked completely at home on it. The records kept...
Why? The ads are the
When
worst.
we hit the pothole, I was worried we'd be stranded for hours.
quietly stacking. Most #1 songs in Korean chart history. Most weeks at #1 on Billboard's K-pop Hot 100. Rolling Stone listed her at number 135 on its 2023 ranking of the greatest singers of all time. Her name kept appearing in rooms she had never tried to push her way into. In January 2024, the next chapter arrived. She released Love Wins All.
Funny thing about that released on my birthday. So it is kind of a personal song at this point for me.
Standalone single with a music video that featured V of BTS, and the message underneath was simple. Even when everything around you is falling apart, love holds. It debuted at #1 on the Circle Digital chart. The music video passed 100 million YouTube views within 19 months of release. For a song this soft, with this kind of message, that was a rare thing. The following month, her 6th EP.
I mean, I also created a Perfect All Kill, which IU also created at the same time.
Arrived. The Winning. She wrote every lyric on it. The double lead singles were Halsey and Shopper, both entering the top 10 on the Circle Digital chart in the week of release. The EP had the feeling of someone gearing up for something bigger, and the bigger thing was already booked. On the 2nd of March 2024, she opened her first full world tour in Seoul. Hey Ray World Tour. 18 cities across Asia, Europe, and North America. It was her first full tour in 5 years, and the scale was on a different level from anything she had done before. The numbers stacked up. Billboard counted over 92,000 tickets sold across 8 of the shows, with over $16.6 million in revenue. The tour landed at #6 on Billboard's highest-grossing K-pop tours of 2024. At the Melon Music Awards that year, Hayrey took home Stage of the Year. Then the tour came home in September, Seoul World Cup Stadium, a venue that had hosted only a handful of solo K-pop concerts ever, with headliners before her including Psy, G-Dragon, and 2017. IU became the first woman musician ever to headline it. Around 100,000 fans came across 2 nights. And the second night, September 22, marked her 100th solo concert. Before the show, she handed every single person in the audience a cushion and a pair of binoculars so they could actually see her from anywhere in the massive stadium. To the residents living near the venue, she sent noise apology letters along with gift-wrapped trash bags. A small, quiet gesture to people who
She is humble and kind.
would not even be attending the show. When the concert reached its closing moments, she looked out at the crowd and said she felt like a dandelion seed floating in the wind, and that her goal was to keep being a singer for as long as she could. That night, she stood on a stage no woman had ever headlined before, looked out at 100,000 people, and still talked about herself like she was just getting started. After the tour closed, it would have been fair to expect a quiet year. She had just spent 6 months traveling across 3 continents, performed her 100th solo concert, headlined the biggest stadium in the country, and released a full EP alongside a global single. Most artists would take a breath. IU walked into 2025 and went straight back to acting. In March 2025, she starred in When Life Gives You Tangerines with Park Bo-gum.
Oh, that was very emotional.
The Netflix series was a slow, tender story set across decades on Jeju Island. Audiences loved it. Critics loved it. It became one of the most talked about Korean dramas of the year. She earned Best Actress at the 4th Blue Dragon Series Awards for the role, along with a nomination at the 61st Baeksong Arts Awards. Around the same time, NetEase Cloud Music named her the most streamed Korean artist in the platform's 12-year history, with more than 3.9 billion streams to her name. Forbes Korea called her the Queen of K-pop and K-drama. The titles kept arriving, and she kept letting them land gently. On the 27th of May 2025, nearly 17 years into her career as a singer, she returned to music.
Future Impossible, Lenovo Legion.
Introducing new Kinder Bueno Frozen. A cream
Music with a Flower Bookmark 3. It was her 3rd cover album, a soft continuation of a series she had started back in 2014. Hyo Namjoon and Cha Eun-woo made guest appearances on the project. There was no heavy promotion around it, just a gift, handed out quietly on an anniversary. The acting did not slow down either. On the 10th of April 2026, she returned to the screen in perfect crown.
I could say that drama was amazing. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be 16 episodes, but went down to 12, unfortunately. But, overall, very good.
A romance set in a version of modern Korea where the country still has a royal family. She played a chaebol heiress in a contract marriage with a prince, played by Byun Woo-sok. The pairing was one of the most anticipated of the year before a single episode even aired. A year after her award-winning run in...
Because also, they were a couple 10 years ago in Moon Lovers, but he cheated on her in that show.
When Life Gives You Tangerines, she was already back on screen carrying another lead. And through all of this, something else had been running the whole time. Since 2016, she has funded an IU scholarship at her old high school. She donates regularly. Disaster relief, children in need, support for vulnerable communities at the end of each year. She rarely talks about any of it unless asked directly. The donations keep growing, and the way she handles them stays the same. 18 years after the 15-year-old who released Lost Child, Lee Ji-yoon is still here. Still the same voice, still writing her own words, still showing up for a crowd of 100,000 and then quietly apologizing to the neighbors. Nothing about her path looks forced. Nothing about where she is now looks like she asked for it. She simply kept showing up, kept picking the harder song, kept writing the harder lyric, and the world kept loving her. More and more. Most big stars make sure everyone sees them getting there. IU got there one quiet decision at a time. A lyric she wanted to write, a role she wanted to take, a stage she walked onto without needing to announce it first. She has the most #1 songs in the history of Korean music. She has stood on stages no woman had stood on before. She has filled stadiums alone. And she still talks about herself like the 15-year-old whose first song nobody heard. That is what her career looks like. Not loud, not showy, just there, for a very long time, because that was always how she wanted it. That is why IU is a living legend. Not because anyone had to say it, because she simply kept being one.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's also because she's, humble on top of it. Might also add to it. So, yeah, let's see what. Let's check if MADEIN has any. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, okay. So on MADEIN, if you follow me for the MADEIN stuff. Actually, they issued a actual statement 3 hours ago. Actually, so the CEO, Ben Sender, said the representation of entertainment company who essayed a minor idol has not been punished for over a year. We're still collecting petitions, letters. Please spread awareness and joy us. And if you want to consider doing so, yeah. I said, CEO of an agency who, yeah. Oh, that's just a translation of what I was saying. So there's that. So let's see what I can do. Okay. I guess we can react to one more video, even though no one's here and it's just me reacting because I feel like it. Oh, anyway, okay. So we're going to do this one.
A supergroup, handed them the industry on a silver platter, and set a 10-month ticking clock. They would then survive the year. And came back a decade later. In December 2015, the broadcasting network Mnet introduced a television format that completely inverted the established industry model. The program, Produce 101, proposed gathering 101 female trainees from 46 different competing entertainment agencies into a single, televised survival competition. With the public taking the role of the national producer, tasked with voting week after week to form an elite 11-member girl group at the end of the show. It was an unprecedented logistical undertaking that temporarily stripped power from the legacy agencies and handed it directly to the television audience. The mechanics of the show guaranteed immediate public investment, as viewers actively watched these trainees fight through brutal weekly evaluations to avoid elimination. Agencies sent their most promising trainees, hoping the massive television exposure would benefit them regardless of whether they made the final lineup. But the reality of the broadcast was grueling, requiring the young contestants to master complex choreography and vocal arrangements within days while under constant camera surveillance. The pressure cooker environment forged a unique bond among the contestants. By the live finale in April 1st, 2016, the 11 highest-ranking trainees, Somi, Sejong, Yoojung, Chungha, Sohei, Jiekyong, Chaeyoung, Doyeon. In April 1st, 2016,
let's go back for a second.
the 11 highest-ranking trainees, Somi, Sejong, Yoojung, Chungha, Sohei, Jiekyong, Chaeyoung, Doyeon, Mina, Nayoung, and Yeonjung were formally announced as IOI on that day. They had survived the immediate trial, but the true complication was written into the very contract they just won. The Produce 101 experiment came with a built-in expiration date. Whoever survived the months of televised evaluations won a guaranteed debut, but the resulting group would only exist for 10 months before disbanding entirely. The 11 members were fundamentally fighting to build a massive, industry-dominating group that they knew they would have to dismantle in less than a year. Moving from the reality television set to the actual music industry required an immediate, tangible debut to capitalize on the show's massive ratings before the public lost interest. So on May 4th, 2016, IOI released their first EP, Chrysalis. The lead single, Dreamgirls, was selected by the members themselves through a blind voting process, aiming to capture the optimistic spirit of their survival show journey.
We are the
And the resulting song was a bright pop anthem that leaned heavily into the aspirational nature of their origin story. The visual execution of the debut leaned heavily into accessible, bright aesthetics, aiming to solidify their status as the nation's newly chosen representatives. The music video for Dreamgirls featured the members portraying various athletic and professional aspirations, from rhythmic gymnastics to rock climbing. Styling choices utilized matching tennis skirts and pastel color grading, standardizing the 11 distinct individuals into a cohesive visual unit. Every visual element was calculated to emphasize their rookie energy and the collective triumph of their formation. Despite the immediate success of Chrysalis debuting at number 4 on the Gaon album chart, the group faced heavy, coordinated industry pushback. Several major broadcasting networks, most notably KBS, NBC, and SBS, initially restricted IOI from appearing on their flagship music programs. These networks viewed the Mnet-created group as a direct competitor's product, forcing the group to rely heavily on cable television appearances, university festivals, and aggressive physical album promotions during their very critical first weeks. Eventually, sheer consumer demand overpowered network politics, breaking the broadcast blockades and forcing the major stations to allow the group on their stages.
Earn 125,000 points and experience more with Chase Sapphire Reserve.
Hi there! Would you like to receive a gift? I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ.
Just as the group secured their footing, the multi-agency contract began to tear the lineup apart. Individual labels recalled their trainees for permanent schedules, prioritizing corporate interests over the project. By the summer of 2016, Sejong, Mina, Yeonjung, and Chaeyoung were pulled to debut in permanent groups like Gugudan and WJSN. This left IOI with only 7 members, removing key vocalists and sparking a public backlash. YMC Entertainment was forced to pivot, reconfiguring the remaining 7 into a subunit to maintain the brand's momentum. On the 9th of August 2016, this fractured subunit released the single album What a Man, marking a drastic shift in their music direction.
What a man, what a man, what a man, not another good man.
The title track heavily sampled Linda Lindell's 1968 song What a Man, replacing the bright optimism of their debut with aggressive, brass-heavy instrumentation. The lyrics focused on confidence and rejection, stripping away the eager-to-please rookie persona they had utilized just months prior. It was a massive gamble, testing whether the IOI name carried weight without the full original lineup. The music video depicted the members actively rejecting a disorganized romantic interest, asserting a mature presence that caught industry critics completely off guard. The risk of promoting without key members paid off significantly, yielding unexpected dividends for the subunit. What a Man earned IOI their very first music show win on SBS MTV's The Show, a milestone they failed to achieve during their debut. And after that, they went on to sweep 4 more trophies that week. Show Champion, M Countdown, Music Bank, and a second win on the show, proving the members were versatile performers capable of carrying a heavy, girl crush concept entirely on their own. The undeniable commercial dominance of the subunit forced the original agencies to acknowledge the sheer financial power of the IOI brand, leading to a temporary truce. As autumn approached, the companies agreed to pause their independent schedules, allowing the full 11-member lineup to reunite for one final promotional push. On the 17th of October 2016, the complete 11-member group released their second EP, Miss Me, backed by the highly anticipated lead single, Very, Very, Very. The track was written and produced by JYP's Park Jin-young for his trainee Somi. The track featured a bouncy cadence and a hook engineered for virality. The recording process under Park Jin-young demanded a highly specific, bouncy vocal cadence, frustrating the members but ultimately delivering an inescapable melody. The music video embraced a vibrant, slightly surreal pop art aesthetic, contrasting sharply with the dark tones of their previous release. Every element of the release was optimized to create a cultural phenomenon, silently showcasing the potential of the full group. And that's not even the most insane part of this specific era. The sheer cultural dominance of Very, Very, Very resulted in a perfect all-kill on the South Korean digital charts, making IOI the fastest girl group to achieve this massive milestone at the time.
And Perfect All Kill is basically getting top one on every single Billboard, music Billboard. So
this means it hit #1 simultaneously on the daily, real-time, and weekly charts of every major South Korean music streaming platform. They began sweeping major end-of-year awards. They won Best New Female Artist, New Artist Award, a second New Artist Award, and a New Star Award. Yet, the brutal reality of their contract meant they were achieving absolute industry supremacy with less than 3 months left to exist. They were actively promoting their biggest hit and performing to millions while simultaneously mentally preparing for their own permanent disbandment. The collision of peak success and an expiring contract demanded a formal farewell. On the 18th of January 2017, just days before their official disbandment, IOI released their final single, a devastating ballad titled Downpour. Written and co-produced by 17's Woozy, the track stripped away the elaborate, upbeat pop production of their previous hits entirely. There was no official high-budget music video shot for the release, avoiding the standard promotional cycle entirely. Instead, YMC Entertainment compiled a massive archive of behind-the-scenes footage spanning from their first days on Produce 101 through their final moments together. The video documented their exhausted rehearsals, backstage celebrations, and quiet moments in waiting rooms, serving as a visual eulogy for the 10-month project. The impact of Downpour transcended standard chart metrics, embedding itself deeply into the K-pop industry's collective consciousness. From January 20 to 22, the group held their final concert series, Time Slip, IOI, at the Jongchung Arena. It was the exact venue where they had held their debut showcase. The performances were emotional for both the members and the fans, culminating in a final rendition of Downpour, where several members were physically unable to finish singing due to their emotional state. And on the 29th of January 2017, the official contract expired, legally terminating the existence of the group.
You got to, you know.
Parents of children who play Roblox. If your child was sexually exploited,
the 11 members were dissolved as a collective asset and immediately sent back to their respective agencies to begin entirely new careers from scratch, as if everything they had built together just ends. The aftermath of IOI scattered the 11 members across the competitive landscape. For several members, the individual trajectory was steeply upward, capitalizing perfectly on the momentum of the previous year. Chungha was the first to achieve escape velocity. Stripped of the group's safety net, she bet on herself as a soloist and won with massive hits like Gotta Go, establishing herself as a premier performance artist in the industry. Somi eventually transitioned to the Black label, finding massive commercial success with tracks like Dum Dum. However, the post-IOI landscape was littered with failures. Agencies attempted to use former IOI members to anchor new permanent girl groups, but the financial and critical results were often devastating. Pristin, featuring Nayoung and Kyulkyung, won multiple rookie awards before being inexplicably placed on a prolonged hiatus and abruptly disbanding in 2019. Their sudden disbandment in 2019 remains one of the industry's most tragic what-ifs. Gugudan, anchored by the massive popularity of Sejong and Mina, struggled to find a definitive concept that resonated with the public and quietly dissolved in 2020. But Sejong's early fall as an idol was her rise as an actress. She pivoted into a leading lady of the Hallyu wave, with business proposal turning her into a global household name. While Mina transformed into a respected dramatic actress in Hotel del Luna.
Wait, what?
Yoo Jung and Doyeon became the heart of Wikimeki, maintaining a loyal cult following for years, yet they were often sidelined by the sheer volume of newer, younger competition. Chaeyeon returned to DIA, where she carried the weight of the group's visibility as their center, while simultaneously building a career in melancholic K-dramas. Yeonjung took the most stable route, joining Cosmic Girls known as WJSN and providing the vocal backbone that led them to victory on the survival show Queendom 2. Then there were the outliers. Sohee, the underdog of Produce 101, defied the idol track entirely, becoming a critically acclaimed indie film actress and winning awards for her nuanced performance in Moonlit Winter. Ji Kyung moved her base back to China, becoming a massive soloist and mentor in her home market. During this turbulent period of solo highs and group failures, the separated IOI members held onto a desperate promise made during their final days: to reunite after 5 years. In 2021, significant attempts were made to honor this timeline, generating massive anticipation within the dormant fandom. The effort culminated in a live stream broadcast on May 4, featuring most of the members gathering to celebrate the anniversary. However, severe logistical hurdles, conflicting agency schedules, and strict pandemic restrictions prevented a formal music release or concert event. The live stream was a touching gesture, but it ultimately left fans with an incomplete sense of closure. Following the compromised 5-year anniversary, the prospect of a full-scale IOI comeback seemed to quietly expire, transitioning from a concrete plan to a nostalgic impossibility. The years 2023 and 2024 marked the absolute lowest point for collective group activity, characterized by a profound, unbroken public silence regarding any future reunion plans. During this period, the 11 members were at their most scattered professionally, operating in entirely different spheres of the entertainment industry. Several of the post-IOI girl groups had officially reached the end of their 7-year contracts and ceased operations entirely, forcing those members into intense periods of reinvention or quiet hiatus. Those who were thriving as soloists or actresses were locked into demanding multi-year individual contracts with strict exclusivity clauses. To the public eye, the logistics of aligning 11 separate careers across multiple competing entertainment agencies appeared fundamentally impossible to execute. Behind closed doors, however, this total silence was an entirely strategic maneuver orchestrated by industry executives and the members themselves. They collectively recognized that settling for another minor, incomplete reunion or a simple digital single would severely damage the weight of the group's legacy. Instead of aiming for the 7th or 8th year, a covert long-term operation began to secure the rights, clear the schedules, and align the massive capital required for a definitive 10th anniversary project in 2026. They intentionally allowed the hype to die, letting the public assume the story was permanently closed, ensuring that when the announcement finally came, the shock value would hit the industry with maximum impact.
That's real cheese.
Queso Maxim with ponchos.
I built a Wix website overnight, and it helped launch my career as a sketch artist.
But did it?
The meticulous, multi-year planning finally happened, breaking a near-decade-long drought and shattering every industry expectation. On May 19, 2026, exactly 10 years after their initial rise, IOI released their third mini-album, IOI Loop, a reunion and a deliberate closing of a 10-year circle. For years, the K-pop industry had written IOI off as a beautiful, closed chapter of the past. The public had grown used to the reunion curse, the empty promises, and the logistical nightmares that usually—
Hey, since G-Friend, reunion concerts and stuff are actually possible now, so I don't think it's a curse anymore.
leave project groups stranded in history. But when the announcement was made and the first teaser dropped, the realization hit. Some bonds are simply too strong for contracts to break, and this IOI is one of them. The record opens with the high-energy "Where My Girls At," a track featuring lyrics by Joan Somi that serves as a defiant reintroduction. Then title track "Suddenly" serves as the anchor for the project, capturing the waves of longing and the resurfacing of memories that had been buried since 2017. Somi took a leading role in writing the lyric, ensuring the message of reconnection felt authentic to their shared history. Deep within the track list, the emotional weight of the decade becomes even more apparent. The song Then, Now, and Forever, written and composed by Chungha, serves as a direct successor to Downpour. It uses the metaphor of a music box finally being wound up again, signaling that the time which stopped at their farewell concert has finally begun to move. The album's versatility is further cemented by the summer pop energy of SPF 100 and the evocative If I, which features lyrical contributions from Yoo Yeonjung. The album even includes a time capsule track, Goodbye with a Smile, which was actually recorded in 2016 but kept in the archives for a decade, allowing fans to hear their youthful promises finally fulfilled by their mature reality. One fan commented, "This is for my 15-year-old self who was devastated when IOI said goodbye." The industry impact was immediate and overwhelming, but for the fans, it was purely personal. Seeing Suddenly dominate the charts felt less like a commercial win and more like a collective victory for everyone who refused to let the dream die. We willed this into existence, shared by a one longtime supporter as the comment sections overflowed with thank yous to the members for keeping their promise. To seal this legacy, the group is returning to the stage for a 3-day solo concert at Jamsil Indoor Stadium from May 29 to 31st. For the fans who have waited 9 years, these shows will be a long overdue promise. IOI started as a short-lived experiment. For a long time, that was the accepted historical record of their existence. They peaked, they disbanded in tears, and the brutal machine moved on to the next season, the next group, the next expiration date. They were meant to be a moment, but they became the memory we carry for a lifetime. Because the industry fundamentally miscalculated the weight of the bond formed under a ticking clock. Very Sweet Forever. Their history was written in 10 months, but it was fortified over 10 years.
10 months into 10 years.
IOI started as a temporary ideal, but they ended as a permanent heartbeat in the lives of their fans.
All right. Okay, that's about it for this week. Okay, if you're also watching on the rerun, consider liking, subscribing, or commenting if you enjoy. And until next time, I'll see you later.
To the Blizzard Arena.
Wait. Remove.
A quest for a champ.
Okay, bye.
Welcome to the Blizzard Arena.
And a quest for a champion begins today.
The anticipation has been building, and it is finally time. We are live.
Are you ready?
That is a really.
Can you get over the roof there?
Oh my!
Oh my!
What a play! What a grab!
Another jump here on the high ground. Super goes forward, but gets stuck off. The EMP comes in, and ding! He rains down hell from above.
Here comes Pine. Gets one, gets two. Looking for a bit more. Gets another one.
Tuno down again. That heralds disaster generally for the Fusion, and Carpe wasn't far behind. Prophet! He's killed 4 players now on his own. From Vancouver, locks him in the sound barrier. Sound the bomb coming from China. Oh my God! He does it again.
Weather now moving onto the Widowmaker, taking the clutch into his own hands. The headshot after headshot after headshot.
Okay, I like this for the Gladiators. We're gonna try and circle around. I will call this the merry-go-round because it makes me laugh. Makes me happy. And Shot Force switches to the Widowmaker at just the right time.
Oh, the Raven!
best Tracy in the world.
Oh my word!
I mean, you could have told me that you spoke English, honestly.
The fans never thought they'd see this day. It took 43 matches. Feels like a really emotional moment here.
Sorry.
All right, bye.